This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Oh, all right then. So after our last mission, you said we had a new job?
Yep, that's right. As the two of you are settling into your new base, there is a message from Niren.
All right, Niren. Cool. I like him. It's only too long since we've gotten to see him in the game.
I love me some Niren. They always get us the best leads. What's the message say?
Well, they have a new job for you, and their new client is on their way over to your place now. And that is when you hear a knock on the pod door.
Oh, then open it.
In walks Kreolak. Hey, gang. I got a great job for you. Someone kidnapped the Prince of Shabari 9.
What? Kreolak again? Son of a bitch.
Wait, what? What?
What happened, Kreolak? Again. We haven't promised not to kill your NPCs. I put a bolt in his head right now.
But it's Kreolak. Like, you guys have worked with him before.
Yeah, and we get bad information from that bastard every time.
And we got to deal with his obnoxious jokes.
Oh, but I thought his jokes were like part of his charm, right? Like, you know, like that's what made him like funny and cool.
He has no charm, Phil. He's annoying, untrustworthy, and obnoxious.
Right now, any job involving Kreolak is a job we want nothing to do with.
But
all right, but we should take the hook. But maybe Niren's got another contact.
Yeah. And I think we should rescue anybody called the Prince of Shabari 9.
Yeah.
And with that, welcome to the 440th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. On tonight's show, we explore what makes good and bad recurring characters. Along the way, we're going to take your comments, suggestions, and examples live from the chat room for life on Twitch before jumping into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan. You like the knocking during the...
Yeah.
Yes, that worked well.
Yeah,
that
actual sound effects and shit. Like
there was an update to the Stream Deck software, and now they have like a Stream Deck store with tons of royalty-free sound effects and music and all this other stuff. So I pulled a few things to use for later.
Do you have a slide whistle?
No, not yet. I'm sure there's one in there, but
we're gonna need either a slide whistle or we're gonna need the Price is Right.
Yeah.
I want the Wilhelm scream. That's what I want. I want the Wilhelm scream.
I'm sure there's a Wilhelm scream in there somewhere.
Did Jerry's chair sink tonight? Like, or is he okay? Is he okay in your? See, I say that, but you shouldn't have done anything until Bob told you if you were okay in the Zoom or not.
No, you're good.
I can see us there. Yeah, I'm sitting a little differently, though I am looking at chairs. I like the chair that you recommended. Lily recommended the same chair, so.
Well, let me tell you, I've had that chair for a year, and I love that chair.
There you go.
In fact, I don't want to go back to the office unless I get one of those chairs.
All right, so on that, we'll segue into our wonderful favorite current topic du jour, the temperature check, where we make sure how everybody's feeling because, you know, we want to make sure that everybody's feeling good for the show and mentally healthy and all that stuff. So, Phil, how you feeling?
I am, I don't know. Mentally, I'm okay. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the one thing. But like, I don't know. I had a kind of anxious weekend that went better than I thought it would. So I'm a little more mentally relaxed than I have been. Physically, I hurt everywhere, and we'll talk about that as well when we get to the one thing. Like, there's just not a part of me that isn't sore right now. Like a harsh reminder of what 49 and being a large man, the intersection of these two things, is doing. On a good note, my Apple Watch has never been more proud of me in terms of how much movement and activity I've had in the last month. It like on a like every 2 days, it like gives me another badge. It's like your streak continues, and I'm like, shut up.
You're knocking it out of the park, Phil.
Oh man, I'm just sore, and I'm not taking anything for it because I don't want to take something and then push myself past a point and hurt myself. Yeah. So I've just been like listening to my body. Like when it's sore, I stop what I'm doing. I rest, I lay down, whatever. And then I get back up and I get back to work kind of thing. And so far that has panned out. That has, I'm like, while I'm sore, I am not injured in any way whatsoever. So
what would you have me do, Alfred? Endure.
Yes. Like that. For a bit longer. Anyway, Jerry, how about you?
Pretty good. With the changing of travel restrictions here in New York State over the last couple of months, combined with the fact that we have somebody retire from our company, means that I'm on the road a bit more. So it's been a little bit more chaotic. We went 2 weeks with down 2 employees, and now we're back up to, we have a new office employee working very well. But I've been on the road a lot. It's been a lot more driving, which means I get more podcast time. I get to listen to stuff again. That's been really nice, but it's been a little exhausting. Longer days, longer driving, that sort of thing. Staying overnight a few places. The interview process is always interesting. So I'm doing okay, but I'm getting frustrated by, like, last week we had an interview session set up, and we had a bunch of appointments, and we drove 2 hours, and nobody was there.
Oh,
yeah.
So we just left and came home early. So we'll see what happens. We've got some contingency plans we've already planned for, but so that's been a little frustrating. But aside from that, it's just been good long work days that we're getting things accomplished, which is what's important. And the new employee seems to be working out well, which is always nice.
That's nice.
That's what I like. Yeah, I like that. All right, so that's it for me. Short and sweet.
That would leave me. Yes. I am. I'm a little sore. Arthritis is acting up. It is what it is. It's not heinous. Annoying. Mentally, feeling pretty good. I feel like I'm way more mellow about all this moving stuff than I may be deep on the inside. I don't know. There was a few moments.
Maybe just ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really got me was how fast everything moved, which created a little bit of chaos in my life. But I think overall, I'm dealing with it. So, and I'm excited. Excited for the next phase of the, next season of Bob is going to be interesting. I like where the showrunners are going with this. So.
Yeah.
All right. So that being said, we'll roll that right on into my one thing. We have unofficially, but formally put in a bid on the condo that I've been looking at, so that we can get it inspected, which is tomorrow afternoon. I got to roll over there and check out the tail end of the inspection and find out if there's anything wrong. And if there's nothing heinous wrong with the place, we're going to take another shot at knocking, see if we can get the seller to knock the price down a little bit. But if they won't, I can live with the price. I'd rather not, but I can.
There you go.
And then we'll go from there. So
it puts you dangerously close to Taco Bell, my friend.
You know what? That is not going to be a problem. And I'll segue for a tiny little bit on Taco Bell. Taco Bell sucks.
Oh, okay.
They revamped their entire menu. They stripped it of like 60% of all the stuff that used to be on it. And everything I used to want to get there is gone.
Well,
gone.
Then you are saved.
So I'm like, nope, I don't need Taco Bell anymore. So,
although I'm pretty sure you're in the delivery range of Insomnia Cookie. So
yeah, I mean, who doesn't
be warned? You can get
cookie
cookies at 2 a.m.
Let's put it. I hope I'll be in the delivery range of Insomnia Cookie in a
I'm pretty sure
that's that's that thing. Jerry, what's your one thing?
We played another session of Low Stakes this week, which is the RPG of basically simulating what we do in Shadows. This was a GM Glenn Seiler, friend of the show. This time, our house full of vampires, ghost witches, and our reluctant homeowner had to deal with the HOA in the neighborhood, and hijinks ensued. This is a game where there's a plot in certain scenes that come up that you roll for, and then every time somebody fails a roll, it adds a complication that heightens the storyline or joke going on, so that if the if the lady across the street has been spying on the house and somebody has a bad complication, now she's got pictures of somebody floating in the backyard or something on that line, and is now talking about it. So everything cycles itself up as the thing goes to its eventual conclusion, which in our case involved one of the vampires murdering the head of the HOA and burying her in the backyard, and also somebody else doing away with an annoying private eye. And so we've already picked our next episode is going to be we get a new housemate, which is going to be fun. That none of us like, apparently, so that's going to be part of the fun. Basically, we're going to be getting an annoying reoccurring NPC.
Oh my god, you're going to get like a Van Helsing. That'll be hilarious, right? Like
either a Van Helsing, or most likely, we think it's going to be somebody's like one of the three vampires, like offspring. Either somebody we turned into a vampire a long time ago, or somebody's actual offspring who's now looking to become a vampire, kind of like from Howard Chaykin's Black Kiss storyline, but as a comedy. So it's the game plays quick and well, and does a good job of just giving you cues that you can use to make comedy, and I like that because it doesn't write the comedy for you. It just gives you, here's the situation, wacky hijinks ensue. And it helps that we have John O'Brien playing the normal, who is the homeowner that we're all stuck in the house with. And, well, he's stuck in the house with us. And he really doesn't want any of us there. We make his life miserable. But we are all friends of his wife or relatives of his wife. Or in Glenn's case, Jen's character killed his character, and he's a ghost in the house haunting the house because she murdered him there in the first place. And so he can't get rid of any of us, and we're stuck in this HOA situation. So anyway, that's the game. We're having a good time with it, and I'm looking forward to the next game in 2 weeks. So that'll be that's Low Stakes. Bill, what's your one thing?
Sure, my one thing's probably a bit on the heavy side, but I'll just briefly talk about the first part, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the second part. But last month, I got separated. I separated from my kid's mother, and it's all fine. Like it was very amicable, and the kids are doing great. We had a big talk about it when we told the kids, and it actually went over very well. And that's all I want to say about that part. But because of that, I'm moving. And I'm not moving very far. I'm moving like 1.5 miles from where I currently live, into a really nice little neighborhood, a mere stone's throw from Wegmans. It is actually the neighborhood Bob originally was looking at for.
It's the neighborhood I wanted.
Yeah, I did not buy a condo. I got an apartment, not a condo. So there was an opening I was able to grab. But it's a really cute little apartment. It's not little. It's a really cute apartment. And it is, and I've been over the course of the month, I have been, gradually moving into it. So I've been packing up and moving stuff, over all through the month. The movers arrive to get the last of the stuff this coming Friday, which, because this will be recorded, it's not going to matter, but I probably won't be on the Friday call because I got to take apart all my computers on Thursday. And then I'm not putting them back together till Friday night till my desk makes it to the new apartment. But anyway, I've been busy, right? So that's why I've been sore. I've been tired. A lot of the other stress that I've been talking about on the show, all has, comes from some of this from work and all of that. So needless to say, my life's been a lot of change. I think in the long run, it's going to, it's all going to be good. The kids are excited to spend their first night over at Dad's. Not right away. I need like a week or two to get some things unpacked and like actually like, have stuff there for them. But we're getting there. I am a frequent flyer on Amazon right now. Amazon's very happy with me. As I had to order up a whole bunch of stuff, and I've been tracking Amazon shipments, and I bought, a couch and a bed and mattress and like all that stuff. But the place is starting to come together, and Friday, things like the gaming table will arrive and all the office chairs that go with the gaming table, which will now be my dining room table and my gaming table. Because I'm just going to use that spot for both. And the bookcase and like all my other games and stuff are going to like arrive and like all that stuff. So that'll be exciting because, I'll be putting it together. But that is why we're not recording next week, which is why I'm bringing it up. We're not recording next week because I need the week to kind of get things together. But then July 6th, we'll be recording live, and I will be recording instead of in the basement. I will just be recording from my office, in my comfy chair with my two big monitors and not on my like 11-inch Mac Air and iPad. And I'm looking forward. I'm excited for the idea of recording in, in a place like you guys do it all the time. Like you guys get up and go to the bathroom during the show. I can't because I have to like go all the way upstairs and come all the way back downstairs. But I too now will be able to just step out and run to the bathroom or to the kitchen, those kinds of things. Anyway, it's a work in progress. My goal is to get the house up to functional in the next week. And then, over the course of the month, I will start going from functional to something like to worrying about decorating and stuff like that. I have things for decorating, but I'm not committing to anything until I see where like all the furniture winds up, like on what walls and stuff. And then I can start making some decisions about like, okay, I could use something here. I could use something there. That kind of stuff. But in I don't know, in a short amount of time, we'll be able to play some games, board games, role-playing games and stuff at my place. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to bring the gaming table that we've been playing on for years will be right there. So yeah, anyway, it's been a lot. I basically am working every day and then like running out at lunch to go over to the apartment to do stuff, doing stuff at night at the apartment, packing up stuff here. It's been a lot. Been a lot. And, I am kind of looking forward to when this all starts to slow down a little bit and I can, kind of settle in to into my place.
I feel you, brother. I'll be doing the same thing in the not too distant future. So
I know. Trust me. I can't stress enough movers, man. Like move the small stuff all during the month, but send in the movers for the big stuff, man. I am like a patchwork of aches and pains right now.
Decorating was always my weak spot. That's when I first moved into this house. I was single at the time, and I had basically a 4-bedroom house. And when I moved out of my last place, I only had 2 things on the wall that weren't shelved. And that was after being there for 20 years. So I moved in here, and I just hadn't quite settled into the house. I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I was like, well, you haven't put anything up yet. So I just dug out some posters and some odd things and just kind of hung them around the house. And as soon as Lily moved in, she started decorating. Take it all down. I don't decorate. Like my personal feeling is, and I tried not to do this upstairs, but like if there's open wall space, I want a bookshelf on it. And so it was always weird because I didn't know how to decorate the house. I didn't know what to put up. I don't collect knickknacks. I don't collect posters or artwork or anything like that. And it was interesting to see, like, what could I put up? Somebody gave me some metallic frogs I stuck on the wall somewhere. It was the only thing I actually bought for the house is there was a Kickstarter a while back. An artist did a poster you could frame that was all of the items that Wile E. Coyote purchased from Acme.
Yes. I know this poster. Yes.
Nice.
With all the episode numbers under.
Yep.
And that's the one thing I bought. Other than that, I had like a poster from the Ogre board game on the wall. And just some other stuff like that. So
I have some like straight up geeky stuff that was down here in the game room that will probably go up in the office. But the aesthetic that I'm shooting for is retro nerdy.
Yep.
So one of the places that there's a thing I really want to order. There's a place that makes these posters, and they look like 1920s and 30s travel posters, but they're all tracks from Mario Kart. So there's like a Koopa Beach, there's a Rainbow Road.
Oh God, I'm gonna have flashbacks when I see Rainbow Road.
Exactly, right? So I want stuff like that. I want some like retro Star Wars stuff. I want some like 80s Atari. I really want 80s Atari artwork. I don't know if you guys remember the artwork on the
very much so.
Very cartridges,
much so.
Right? Like I want some of those. Like I want the Warlords.
I'm sure you can find
picture.
some prints of those.
You want Berserk. Definitely want Berserk.
Berserk, Missile Command, right? Like what I really want is something that like doesn't scream like I stole it from a game store.
Yeah.
But then like when you go look at it, you're like,
oh,
that's awesome, right? Like the other one that I do want is I saw somebody has a print of a schematic of Deep Space Nine, and I might need either a Deep Space Nine schematic or I might need a Defiant.
I have a similar idea for some gaming related stuff to hang in my office, but in my living space, in the living room / dining room area somewhere, once I get settled and I figure out where all the furniture is, wherever I end up. One thing that's definitely going on the wall is I have one of those 5-part pictures where it's like the big one in the middle and then smaller ones out on the sides. I've got a Godzilla print, a 5-piece Godzilla print.
Nice.
And
that's a good
over
like the
living room.
couch.
Yeah.
Like over the couch kind of guy.
My thing was I decided I was going to decorate the basement in geekness, and then decorate the upper one in like more traditional household attire.
Yeah.
And then when Lily moved in, she's got a good eye for just aesthetics and country kitchen that looks better. The other thing she kept his eye for a while, I had a little statue of 2 frogs playing checkers using ladybugs, and even that was out. Like, the frog thing for a while. It's good. I'm glad to see that's really important because I think that making the place your own with decorations makes a huge difference. So sounds cool.
Yeah, it's actually the first time in my life that will have lived on my own. I've always like lived with somebody else, and this will be the first time that a whole apartment will be my own space to kind of set up the way I'd like it and take care of it and decorate it and stuff like that. So I'm excited. It'll it's going to require some changes, and with the kids coming over and things like that, I have to kind of change up my weekly routines, but that'll all work itself out appropriately. So anyway, we've used up a lot of time on this. Why don't I jump through the announcements super quick, and we'll get right into our feature segment. So thank you, everyone, for letting us indulge on some real life stuff for a bit, because we are actual real humans who do real life stuff.
Yes,
and have real lives outside of these recordings. All right, cool. My only announcement this week is just to make mention of Voyager Week 16. Holy shit, is this a good week?
Yes.
I didn't realize it till I was like assembling the list for the week. And I looked at the episodes and I was like, holy shit, like there is no loser in the bunch this week. We have a great double feature tonight for the watch party. We are going to watch a very, very good episode called Pathfinder. And then we are going to watch a very amusing holodeck misadventure called Fairhaven. But then we've got like 2 really good sci-fi episodes, like really good, just like good sci-fi stories. There is, I think, a doctor story in the middle, and then we end with the episode that includes The Rock. I can't even stress to you enough that there is an episode of Voyager that has The Rock in it, and it is everything you want it to be. It also has 2 DS9 alum in it as well. Nice. Like minor, like actors, not characters. Yeah. But I guarantee if you're Bob, you'll recognize him immediately. Yeah. Everyone else could, we'll have to work up to it. But Bob will be like, oh, I see it.
Is one of them Bruce Campbell? Because he shows up everywhere.
No.
Bruce
Like
Campbell
I said,
actually hasn't showed up on Trek yet.
Yeah, Bruce Campbell's from DS9. He's everywhere. But that's okay. Yeah.
So anyway, there is no loser in the bunch. It's so good there are no bonus episodes because I just did like 5 consecutive episodes and we're like, well, these are all good.
Yep.
So I'm excited for this week. Yes. This week we got some enjoyable stuff, and we have a guest joining us tonight on the watch party. Meg Dornbrock's going to come join us to watch both episodes, I think, tonight.
Nice.
All right, and then the after show, I'll argue with Jerry about Bruce Campbell never being on Star Trek. Okay, so what we've got?
He's never been on Star Trek.
This is a workshop.
Oh shit! Okay, hang on.
Put
my water down.
Some people think this is their favorite bit, okay. So it's
yes. Workshop! We're doing reoccurring characters. They're coming back again. You better make them good so you don't annoy your players each time this character comes back. In the workshop, it's reoccurring characters.
Don't suck.
Yeah. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about the reoccurring NPCs, which by that we mean the ones that show up again and again in the campaigns you run or play. This came up because I've had my share of experiences with both good ones and bad ones. And we thought tonight we want to talk about what goes into making a good recurring NPC and what happens when you have a bad one and what responsibilities the players have when interacting with them.
And of course, to get started, we got to get some definitions up. So let me play this little ditty here.
Behold, you are in the presence of Definition Panda.
So we don't have too many definitions for tonight, but we do need to kind of cover a few things to get everything started. Reoccurring, to occur again or repeatedly, and recurring, occurring again periodically or repeatedly. A reoccurring or recurring character is an NPC that shows up in a campaign more than once. And while these 2 words sound the same, there is actually a little bit of a difference between these 2 words. I actually hit the Googles to find out. Jerry, tell Bob what the difference is.
Okay. Reoccur and recur are both verbs that share a common root word. While they're very close in meaning, they're not the same thing. Something as recurring happens over and over and over again, possibly at regular intervals. In contrast, something that's reoccurring is simply happening again, but not always repeatedly. It might just happen once.
Yeah, right. So that I have to say, Google Docs threw me for a loop because I went in to look at the show notes and it was underlined everywhere you had reoccurring.
I hated
it. Like, no, that's not a word. You mean recurring. And I'm like, well, fuck. So I changed it. And then I got down to this definition and went, well, shit. It is a word. Why did you underline it and tell me it wasn't a word? So then I did an actual Google search and went, yep, it's a word. And I went back and I changed it again. I'm like, son
of a bitch. The exact same thing. I went through and changed every occurrence of reoccur to recur until we got to this definition. And then I'm like, son of a bitch.
So it started when I started writing the episode. I wrote reoccurring, and it was like recurring, and I'm like, hold up, Google. And I opened a second tab, and I was like, recurring or reoccurring, and I just put those 2 words in there, and then it popped up that paragraph, and I read it, and I'm like, well, technically we could use either, which now gets me back onto the notes. Technically, we could use either one of these to cover what we're talking about. But the actual more correct term is reoccurring because there's no guarantee that an NPC is going to show up in future episodes, right? A recurring character might be something like if you were doing mission-based adventures and your handler is a recurring character because they're going to be there every, like, you know, at the beginning of every story. A reoccurring NPC is like somebody you meet and maybe you meet him again later, on some other interval or not, right? I don't think we need to split hairs on that. I'm not going to jump on anyone tonight. So if you use reoccurring or recurring, it's fine. But we did actually go the extra distance to
explain what it was.
Just to check off, like just to check it. Because again, it did the same thing to me. Like immediately as soon as I typed reoccurring, it was like, Phil. And I'm like, hold up. Hang on. Okay, so cool. All right. So with that all aside, what we are talking about when we are talking about RPGs is we are talking about NPCs that make multiple appearances in your game, right? These NPCs can be good, neutral, or evil, right? So we can have reoccurring characters that are good. We can have reoccurring characters that are just, you know, people we pass in the town. We can have reoccurring villains. The reoccurring part is what really is like the important part here,
right?
Which is that they're going to get introduced in a session, and then at a future time, or once or more, they're going to return into the story to interact with the players again. And that actually means something, right? It means that they will know the characters, they will have history with the characters from previous interactions, and they present an opportunity for the characters to actually get to know the NPC better, because often like how much you know an NPC in a given session, you don't really, like, you usually wind up knowing what you need to know to kind of complete the adventure. But if a character shows up over and over, we have more opportunities to learn more about them. And really think about it, if you think about like reoccurring, people in TV shows, and because you mentioned Bruce Campbell, I will, mention like in Xena, the Prince of Thieves, right? Like, if I am correct, right? He was the Prince of Thieves in,
Autolycus.
Yeah.
Wasn't he Autolycus? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he was a reoccurring character on Xena, maybe Hercules, but I don't talk about Hercules.
You're right. Not Bruce Campbell. I'm sorry. You're right. Now I understand.
Jeffrey Combs.
I've got the right. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. I get those. Yep,
yeah, two totally different.
You know where I was going with that. I got lost. Thank you.
Anyway,
by the way, when we talk about good and bad in these contexts, we're not talking about good versus evil. We're talking about some that are good for the campaign and some that are frustrating to the campaign.
Yes, so, for the rest of this talk, yes. When we talk about good or bad, we're talking about well-formed or not well-formed.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Yes. All right, so as a tool for telling stories, there's a lot you can do with reoccurring characters. Jerry, what can you tell us about that?
Well, first of all, a reoccurring character is going to do all the same things that a good single NPC does for a game. But in addition to adding to the game itself, they can do a couple other things. Number one is they're going to create continuity by being someone the players can interact with over the course of the game and see some sort of change. And this continuity is the most important thing they do.
Yeah. A good campaign, right? If we're talking about what really makes up a campaign, right? We've talked about this a lot of times, right? A campaign is obviously multiple sessions strung together, but that's not really what makes a good campaign. Like, we played DCC and played a whole bunch of adventures back to back. And technically that's a campaign. It wasn't a good campaign in terms of the structure of a campaign. A good campaign feels the passage of time. Our Forbidden Lands game is a good campaign. And what I mean by a good campaign feels the passage of time is that the characters have memories of things that have happened in the past, and a reoccurring character is a great way to demonstrate that. They will notice, the reoccurring character will notice the change in the characters, right? They'll notice like, oh, I remember when you could barely cast light, and here you are like defending the town from a dragon with your spells, right? They'll remember the things they've done. Sometimes they'll remember heroic things. Sometimes they'll remember funny things. Like, this is that thing about like, when you go home, like no matter how awesome you are, like you can never go home. There's a there's a story about Jesus going home to Nazareth. No one takes him seriously because like he's just Joseph's kid, right? Andy's going to jump in on that in a second after I said that, but it's essentially that, right? Like the reoccurring characters will be like, like I remember like when I remember when you let the pigs out of the pen, and you're like, yeah, but I'm like a hero now, right? Like, yeah, but make sure the pen's closed, right? Like, that kind of thing. Reoccurring characters are touchstones to the campaign world, right? Because you can't really, as a player, I can describe to you the town and you can imagine it in your head, and I can describe to you the changes in the town. And that's kind of interesting. But what really makes you feel like things have passed is when you interact with characters, because it's a chance to have a conversation. It's a chance for the GM to talk to you, as well as for you to talk to them. And so these reoccurring characters are really like these touchstones in the campaign world that make things feel more real.
Okay. In addition, that's a very important thing. They're going to do things that any other NPC does. So they're going to be doing things like they're going to be adding details to the world, telling the players about what's going on. The players hopefully will become emotionally invested in them. They're going to be seeds for adventures if the players get involved with them. Sometimes they can be comic relief, and they're a good way for the GM to get out and act and grow as a character as well. Basically, have somebody in the game that shows some growth and a chance to kind of stretch their role-playing skills.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not hard to have an NPC come back over and over in the course of a campaign, but that doesn't make them a good reoccurring character. Phil, what makes a good reoccurring character?
Sure, right. So a lot of what goes into making a good reoccurring character is actually true for any NPC, right? Like what makes a good NPC? Like you can't be a bad as in like not formed well. You can't be a bad NPC and be a good reoccurring character, right? Like you actually have to first be a decent character. Like, and then then there are still things we need to do to make it good reoccurring character. So Jerry, what are like run me through some of the things that make a good NPC?
Well, first of all, they should be somebody that the players enjoy interacting with. They don't have to like them, but they have to like interacting with them. They should be somebody that can sometimes give useful contributions to either the party or the story. Some recurring NPCs will give a special niche skill or spell or ability or something. And sometimes they're just going to contribute to the story itself by either filling in the gaps or acting as a part of the story that the players have a chance to interact with to either bring them back to the story or make them feel more grounded or connected to it. Some good recurring characters are going to have interesting character traits, their quirks that the players seem to like, either their reactions to the players. It could be things like vocal inflections. It could be the way that they act. It could be the way that the GM is portraying them at the table. Some of them have a fun backstory that the players want to get involved with, and that can lead back to some sort of story link. And sometimes the NPC can actually fill in a niche in the PC backstory or story arc. If the players have, a missing brother or somebody in their past that did something, a recurring NPC that the players like could be somebody who fills that niche, either by the GM's choice or often the player's choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are all really good traits of a good NPC. So because this character is going to show up in the story again and again, there's also some additional things you want to do to make them a really good reoccurring character. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things is, and Jerry touched on this a little, but I think it's even more important for a reoccurring character, is some sort of notable description, voice, or catchphrase so that the characters always recognize this NPC. And because remember, we all have our own images of what NPCs look like and things like that. But if you have something that you're like really consistent about that NPC, like this NPC always does a thing, it will help key in the players. Like a long time ago, Bob and I played an Ebron D&D campaign. And there was this guy who was a recurring NPC who hired our characters a couple times. And he had this trait where he would sit with his hat in his hands and fidget with the hat, like kind of turning it in his hands while he talked to us in a mousy way. And we all knew the second before the GM even spoke or before the GM even described the character, as soon as his hands kind of went into that position of like holding the hat, like we all knew. We're like, oh, it's this guy again. Like, what trouble are you in now? Right. Like, but that's like a great hook for a reoccurring character. So, have like when you've decided to commit to a character being reoccurring, invest a little in something about them, whether it's that like they always wear a red blazer. Who did I have, Bob? I had a character that always wore black on black. Oh, he was the bad guy from Witchcraft.
Oh.
Wore the black suit with the black shirt and the black tie.
Okay, yeah.
But it was that kind of thing. Like as soon as I said, like, oh, the guy, like the camera pans over and you see this, black suit with a black shirt, and all the players be like, oh, son of a bitch, right? Like have that hook, because that's what keys players in quickly to who this NPC is. Reoccurring NPCs should have goals. They don't need to be full characters, but like your barkeep that the players visit every time they go through town, like that guy should be working on his retirement. Like, yo, I'm going up this weekend to, put a little more work on the cabin, right? Like that kind of thing. Like that's the thing that the players then, when they interact with them, like they discover that this isn't just like a cutout that's there to serve drinks and be, an information broker, but actually like discover that like, oh, there's actually more to this, to this character. And players like that. Like players like learning more about characters for the most part. Some players don't, but I think that's pretty true. And then the other thing is that because they're reoccurring, you can deepen their backstory and like have more things for them to be to discover through play. You don't have to write it all up at once, and you don't have to you don't have to puke it out onto the players all at once, but like you can like build a little backstory, some of it in advance, some of it just in between sessions. Be like, oh, you know what? I never thought of this before, but that barkeep, like he was, he fought in the last Great War. Like I didn't plan him that way when I first made him, but he does now. Like, and he never talks about it, but now he's going to talk about it to the players, because the story that we're going to cover where the players are going to bump into him again is going to be like about things from the Great War.
That's where you first got the idea to become a turnip farmer.
You can also have NPCs that mention, later on the players encounter somebody who mentions serving in a unit with the barkeep. The barkeep. In the after show, I'll have to talk about the I think it's the Lee Marvin story like that. There's a Lee Marvin story like that. We'll talk about that in the after show.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So, in addition to backstory, things about recurring characters that they can be either static or they can be dynamic. A static character is going to be somebody who doesn't change much over time, like the stuffy butler who keeps showing up, always makes snide comments with a PC's visit, but secretly helps them as they go along. That's a character who doesn't change at all. It is somebody they can rely on and gives some familiarity to a scene. However, Phil?
Yeah, so the opposite of that is the dynamic character, right? So this is a reoccurring character that actually grows and changes over time. So this could be like the apprentice blacksmith who, like, after like a whole handful of adventures, or you guys have been plane hopping or whatever, you come back to town and you discover they're now a full blacksmith. And then, some weird shit happens. There's some time portals and you fight some gods or whatever. When you come back, now they've taken over for the woman that trained them from the woman that trained them. And now they're the town's blacksmith.
Cool.
Right. That's a dynamic character. He's like changed over time, and
a lot of growth.
Players can see that.
Cool. So with all that good advice, are there things that we should avoid when it comes to reoccurring characters, Jerry?
All right. There are some recurring characters that can be poorly done. The problems with a bad recurring character are going to be similar to other NPCs, except that this NPC keeps showing up. So anything annoying that they do will happen over and over and over with each occurrence. And therefore, it's even more important to avoid certain things.
Yeah. So, first of all, quirkily annoying, right? Like they have some sort of quirk that no one likes.
Yeah. The second thing is if they're overpowering. If they constantly show up to save the day, or they're constantly showing up and basically one-up or upstaging the PCs in such a way that makes the PCs feel less important or feel like they didn't matter.
They wind up being too essential to the plot to be left behind. Like a good NPC kind of like is helps move a thing along, but is not like the key to moving everything along.
And tied into that is when they're forced on the party. The NPC that the players don't want around, but that because of the storyline or just because of what happens as the GM puts things there, is constantly being forced on the party to stick around with them. That can become extremely annoying.
They could interfere or twist the PC's efforts too often, right? Like if the sole purpose of the NPC is to come in and fuck with the plans of the players, nobody's gonna like this guy. Like if he always double crosses the players, like if he's the little Muppet from Farscape, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to airlock that guy as fast as possible.
With his name on it.
Actually, the entire discussion that brought this whole topic to the forefront are the Martell sisters from the Bad Batch. Every time they show up, all they do is deliberately interfere with the hero's efforts.
And that's how you know that it's a written media and not a role-playing game, because in a role-playing game, you'd have just airlocked them.
Exactly.
See ya. Two to the back of the head.
Exactly. And then out the airlock. And then blow them up. Anyway, so when you have these bad recurring characters, what can happen is this can force the party away from key plot elements, or even make them abandon a quest, or even the whole game. We played a couple of games when I was still working for Dark City Games. We had one of the authors did some online games and played in a few things with us. And every time he played, he had a character named Cree. Every single game he played a character named Cree. Same character. When he wrote his game books he submitted, Cree was an NPC that the players had to pick along with them in every game. And then he started running his own campaign. He ran a one-shot that then his character Cree showed up as an NPC and then ran a campaign. And when he ran the campaign and asked for players, we all joined, and three of us said, we'll play in your game, but if Cree shows up, we leave.
Oh, boy.
And like a month into the game, Cree showed up, and we all just left the game. We're like, you're not trustworthy as a GM, because this was they liked this NPC, and nobody liked him. But they liked him because it was their what do you call it? Their eidolon in the game. And just didn't. I know I used the wrong term there, but
I think we know where you're going.
I've seen that though in other games where I'm sure I've done it as a GM in my early days, where you have a NPC in there. But we've actually had games where what Bob and I talked about at the beginning of the game, where this NPC shows up, and because that NPC is involved with the plot, the players just refuse to have anything to do with it. Like, okay, yes. we are not going. If they bring it up to us, we're not doing it. And now we're going to talk about the more mature way to deal with that than what we've done before. But that can happen, and I've seen it completely derail campaigns. I've seen it end games, and I've seen it really mess up the plot. It makes it frustrating for the GM as well, because the GM's trying to do something and the players are resistant to it. Because of the NPC involved, it can either slow down or completely move plots around. So that's our take on bad recurring characters.
You know what? I'm going to pause you really quick because Avi was asking, what exactly was annoying about Cree?
So Cree was always the best at everything, even if they weren't.
There it is.
As a player character, Cree had one of those super detailed backstories that fell just short of I'm half demigod kind of things. The player playing Cree kept trying to insert their own campaign backstory stuff into this because, as I said, he was an author writing some game books for our thing. So when he played in games, he kept trying to insert his own stuff in there, his own ideas. It was one of those things where this player was just the only character this character played. It was their their favorite character, and obviously it bends something in another campaign that was really good. Kept trying to push that character in that direction.
Yeah.
Kept stepping on as a player character. Kept stepping on other people's roles in the game.
Oof.
Was a teleporting player as well, if you know what that term means. So yeah, and then as an NPC was just a better swordsman than everybody. Was handsome and brave, and just all those things.
Awesome.
Airlock.
Yeah. So, yep.
All right. But, so far, we've talked about stuff that GMs can do, but what about players supporting recurring characters? Phil, what do we do with that?
Yeah, we don't want to just pin this on the GM, right? Everybody has a responsibility at the table for having and making everything a fun time. So yeah, players do have a job when it comes to reoccurring characters. And the most important job that they have is to actually interact with the NPC, right? Like if the GM's bringing them around, ideally they're there to be interacted with. So a reoccurring NPC is a chance for the GM actually to have longer and deeper interactions with the players. Like it's like from a GM side, I love reoccurring characters for exactly this reason, right? Like this is my chance to kind of get to dig in with the players because I don't always have to play like I've just met you for the first time or I don't know your bullshit. Yeah. Right. Like that's what the reoccurring character gets me as a GM. So like for me, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And if players are lukewarm about interacting with this NPC, then we're not going to have, I can't have that fun with you. And you're not going to have that fun of me interacting because, you're just like, NPC, I don't really want to talk to them, whatever. Like, we're just doing our thing.
Well, before we jump away from this, I think as a player, it's also important that if you find NPCs you like, it's important to know the GM. If you see the GM's having a good time playing with a character, make sure you let the GM know that you like that character and you want them to show up again.
Yes.
Bob remembers from Chris's Eberron campaign, in the very first adventure before Bob joined, we had encountered this neophyte town guardsman, and the players liked him. And then when Bob showed up, we got involved with him again. And we let Chris know that we like this guy. We're going to go out of our way that if his name is mentioned, we're 100% on board with whatever story's involved with that character, even if it's a distraction for us. And so that character showed up, but also meant that as a GM, Chris could give us information through that character that we could trust, and that we knew that anything coming from him was something we should pay attention to and follow as a story. So Chris enjoyed playing him. We enjoyed working with him. And as a result, there was a nice mesh there because we didn't have to constantly reestablish that trust. And also meant that we all knew from a medic standpoint that if this character showed up and mentioned something, we should pay attention to it. And that's a good lead. And it was useful for when we were following the wrong clues.
Well, and I agree completely, right? So first of all, I don't think, again, there's no magic to this, right? So it's all communication.
Yeah.
If you like an NPC, you should absolutely tell your GM, even if the GM initially was going to just make this as a throwaway NPC, and you're like, oh no, this NPC is fantastic. We really had a good time. I hope he comes back in a future session. The GM will make that happen. It may just take a little creativity. How do I get this bartender, over to the next town, galaxy or whatever. But sure, I'll figure it out. That's what I'm here for. So I highly encourage. It is very easy to just say at the end of a session or at a break during a session or whatever, be like, this NPC, I'm just loving him. All right. I'm just loving him, and I'm hoping that this NPC is going to be back in the future. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything obscure, have your character, you can have your character be interested and have a good time with them, but you don't have to, you don't have to be covert about this. Just tell the GM.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. The GM's not going to be thrown off by it either. They'll be like, oh, thanks. That's good to know.
All right. So
I will say just one more thing about that. As a GM, if I throw out an NPC and it, all of a sudden it becomes everybody latches onto him, or we have a couple good scenes, my own inclination is I will put like in my notes during the session, I will just put a star next to their name and be like, oh, this person will be coming back. Like I think I originally had a NPC. Oh, I did. Originally, I had an NPC for Tales from the Loop for just like a session that was this nerdy computer girl named Leah. And she wound up like gelling so well with the group when I played her character that I was like, oh no, Leah is like I'm escalating this character and pushing her way forward into the story.
Good news, you just got promoted to less expendable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a kind of thing like she fit into a particular story that we were doing. Oh, she was the girl who got caught in the phone booth when the birds attacked.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anything like terribly special about her. There was a classmate or whatever. But over time, she became like a really cool, like reoccurring NPC in the game. I dug her very much.
Yep.
She was fun. I actually dug the interactions with everybody when I put Leah into a scene.
That's who I took to the Winter Ball.
Yes, you took her to the Winter Ball after much waffling on that. It was good. Yeah. It was good. All right. So what if, Jerry, I'll just pose this to you so that you can pick up where we left off. What if the NPC sucks? What should the players do? Well,
first, you have to tell the GM when a recurring NPC is not working for them. In some cases, the GM may not catch on with the character like an NPC, but in many cases, the GM may not even notice. Don't just have your characters blow off the NPC or shoot them, flush them out the airlock, give them the hungry cyber pandas, whatever. Have the conversations as players with the GM. Because in most cases, the GM can make necessary tweaks to improve a character. In the same campaign that Kree was a character in, the GM had a situation where they wanted to introduce basically a Captain Jack Sparrow character. And had that character come in and start hitting on one of the other players in the game. And that player had already discussed that her character was not interested in any romantic prospects whatsoever and had been kind of vamped before or pressured before by other people. And he kept having this character be kind of obnoxious, have a swagger, kind of hit on the girl, and was trying to use them as, and because this was all played by post, it wasn't face-to-face, it was a little more difficult to react with. And finally, I had to contact the GM privately and explain to him that the rest of the party was planning on killing this character because he wasn't taking no for an answer, and that we were going to drag him back and stab him. What was his deal? And the GM was just flabbergasted. Despite all of our comments to the contrary, he thought we all loved him because it's Captain Jack Sparrow. Who doesn't love Captain Jack Sparrow? And in his eyes. And because we didn't talk to him. And we should have said early on, like, we don't like this guy. We're going to make him go away. We kept pushing him off, and everybody thought, and the GM thought it was one of those, oh, we're just verbally sparring with him, not we're going to stab you and set you on fire and then bury the ashes kind of thing.
Exactly. This is that thing where subtlety almost never works. Like, it's so much better to just tell, like, and this goes to the 8 things the GM is doing at all times, right? So, like, if I'm playing this character and I think it's going off reasonably well, or I'm just kind of lost in the fact that I'm really enjoying my own portrayal of the character. Maybe I'm doing a bad job, or maybe in those 8 skills I'm juggling, one of them is not reading the table.
Yeah.
You know, and the players are just like kind of, about it. I can leave that table with a very skewed view of this character being like, oh, that went off really well because I like did the character really well.
Yep.
But maybe like Jerry said, maybe everybody hates this guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. I have learned long ago to simply let the GM know we don't like this guy.
Yeah, we don't like this guy.
I will flat out just say, like, is this character important because we don't like him? Or I'll even go as far as saying, is this character too important for me to kill right now? And because I can't stand them at all, and if they show up again, we're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
And then the GM says, okay, what's going on?
I have in the past asked, is this character supposed to be likable?
Yes, that's
Like,
a good one.
that's
Yep.
often a good way to like start a conversation with the GM. Like, is this character supposed to be likable?
'Cause
And then it'd be
they're
like,
not.
why? Are they not? And be like, not really. Like, they screw us all the time. Like, oh, I guess you're right. Like, it's that kind of thing. Because a lot of times, like when I'm making NPCs, I'll be like, okay, this character is like supposed to be the friend of the character, so I'm assuming I've made him likable. And then I inject him into the game with the thought in my head that, oh yeah, this is a likable character. Without knowing if that actually achieved its mark or not. Right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it is important. Like, that's a great, like, it's a good way to open up. Like, am I supposed to hate this character? I feel like I'm supposed to hate this character. And sometimes that's exactly my intention. Like when we made, when we were playing I Hunt, I did everything possible to make sure that the first target, the douchey hedge fund wizard, was as unlikable as possible. Like everything about this character exuded like, I am unlikable as hell. And the players caught on to it. Like, it was one of those cases where as soon as like they learned, like they saw the picture and they were like, oh God. And then they like learned more about him. Like they learned a couple of his aspects, including, have you met my father? And they were just like, this guy's got to die. And I was like, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Like, I have landed this NPC exactly where he's supposed to be. He is unlikable as fuck. Which was great because I knew what, he was reoccurring with a limit. He was only going to reoccur for so long before the players murdered him. So, yeah. Like that.
We had a campaign where the entire organization we worked for was full of characters that the GM thought we all liked, and we had been secretly plotting to overthrow the entire organization because we thought all of them were villains. And because we didn't talk to the GM about it early enough, it got to the point where we never trusted them. Like, we just couldn't come back from that because it was about 8 sessions in. But the GM partially is because they were doing a pre-written adventure. The pre-written adventure was badly written. But it's that kind of thing. You get to that point where it goes that way. And there's other times that the GM thinks they're playing a character as bad, and the players attack. This happened in my Mechton Fantasy campaign where the main villain of the first adventure, the one character fell in love with him, the other character wanted to join his team. They began to really look into what he was doing and why, and maybe he wasn't a completely bad guy, and changed the entire scope of the entire campaign from that point. Because, and yeah, she did end up romancing him and eventually marrying him. But I was planning on him being a villain, and he ended up being one of their allies. It happens. It's fun. It's good for me.
I will also say this: it is entirely possible it's entirely possible on a meta level to have a character that your character hates.
Yep.
That you, as the player, tell the GM that you love having around.
Oh yes, very much. Right?
So. Like I hate this guy. Like, my character hates this guy so much.
That'll come up in the questions.
Yep.
What? Oh yes. Okay. Good.
Yes.
Yeah. That's that's also a thing you can tell the GM, right? Like, my character loathes this person, but oh no, eventually I'm going to hate kiss this person. So please leave them in the campaign because that's on its way.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
That domino has been set.
That being said, we should wrap up the first part of this segment.
Yes, we should.
Okay.
So that's our basic overview of reoccurring characters. We're going to check in with the chat room because they've actually queued up a couple of questions. We're going to jump into those questions in a moment. But first, Bob, tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yeah, so we got this little ditty called Pandas Talking Games. You may have heard of it.
I have.
Phil and Senda, they sit down on the mics and they answer your questions about RPGs. They started out with the perspective of one-shots versus campaigns. Sometimes they switch it up and they give you two different kind of, not necessarily opposing views, but two different angles.
Now it's just a free for all. We'll just throw a topic. We'll talk about
They're
it.
throwing a plate of spaghetti up against the wall.
At 5 years. At 5 years, it's hard to keep one shtick. You gotta be fluid. You gotta just keep it going.
You gotta grow. You gotta evolve. Otherwise, you stagnate. But they do it with panda silliness, which you gotta have the panda silliness. And if you listen to it, you will love it. It's like a cult. I mean, it's a very, very fun show that you will enjoy for the rest of your days. It's not like a cult at all.
It's there to listen to if you like to have more better. What is it? More better games.
More better.
That's our other. More better games is our other slogan.
Or more betterer.
Mm-hmm. More betterer games.
Yeah. All right. So, chat room.
More better, more games.
What we've got a couple of fine ones from Avi the Jackal. The first one. Is there any special differences between a reoccurring character that the GM planned versus a reoccurring character that's reincorporated by the player-generated PCs?
I would say there's not a lot of difference as long as the players let the GM know that they're bringing them back. If the GM is planning them, then they're going to have a little bit more of an idea ahead of time of what they want that character to do the next time they show up. Or if the players bring them back, the GM may have to improv a little. So it's best for the players to know, but they might just say, one of the ways players can kind of love letter this to their GM is, we go back to this town, we immediately go look for, Bob the barkeep, because we really had a good time with him last time, or that sort of thing is looking for that NPC as soon as they're back in an area. Or if the players, you walk into the bazaar and immediately somebody goes, oh, is Ookla there? That's a good sign that you're love lettering that. Aside from that, I don't think there's a lot of difference between one of the players pick and one of the GM picks, except for the GM one is going to probably have a little bit more initial story hook to them or the story involvement because the GM is planning on that.
Yeah,
that's my thought on it.
My personal opinion. I like the ones that the players create on their own. When the players have caused this NPC to be a reoccurring character, I'm like, all right, they like that person and they brought them back. Like that to me feels more organic than the GM bringing them back and kind of like, yeah, I suppose that's organic too. Yeah, whatever.
So Avi's saying that he said, no, I meant the GM reincorporating an NPC that the players generated. So if the players generate the NPC, I think like Jerry said, you may not know as much. If I'm assuming, and Avi can correct us if I'm wrong, even if the players created it, it's an NPC, so the GM's playing the NPC.
Yeah.
Now it's possible that the players, like one of the players is playing their own like an NPC, like a sidekick, like maybe you're Batman and you've got your Robin character, and everybody's like, no, bring the Robin character back, right? Like that kind of thing. So I think a lot of it still kind of goes through what we talked about, right? Like, first of all, you got to be a good character. Second of all, as a good reoccurring character, right? Like you need to have some of that, like that depth, that catchiness so that everybody knows who it is. So I think whether the players create it and hand it off to the GM, like, hey, I created like this, like, oh, my parents have this butler, right? He's like this really stodgy butler, except when no one's around, he curses like a sailor. And then you just like give that to the GM, right? Like, here, take this and have fun with it. Like that's great. Like then it's just on the GM to make sure that you, because you didn't write that character, you quick jot down some notes so that you know how to play the character again in the future. And if it's a character that the players create and they're also going to play out, I actually don't think there's a huge difference in that. In that you should just still do the things that make a good character, like that make a good NPC.
I think a good example of that, Bob, would be the Dwarven Guards from the Eberron game, where we encountered our third player encountered some Dwarven Guards that Chris tossed in, and Bob and I just took them over as NPCs and interacted with them. And the next time that we had to go someplace in the Dwarven Quarter, one of the players like, we see this guard we met before. And the next time we went there, we saw this guard we met before.
Oh, you're talking about the dudes at the bank.
Yeah, the dudes at the bank, and they were not helpful to us anytime they showed up.
No,
they were always difficult for us.
Yeah,
but because Bob and I played them first, then Chris ran them that same way and added his own fun twist to them, so they were always slightly difficult to deal with. It became recurring characters, and they were. I mean, technically, they were created by Bob and I, because Chris just said guards, and we jumped into their bodies because we weren't in the scene.
Yeah.
And then after that, Chris just kept bringing them back whenever we asked for them. We would ask for them, and it worked very well.
Yeah.
That, he wasn't expecting us to have the guards show up again, but the first time we encountered guards in the Dwarven Quarter, they were the ones we encountered, and they were just as difficult.
Yep.
And we loved that.
Yep.
That's also a good example of characters that the characters don't like, but the players do.
Yeah.
Because they were always going to be there to foil our characters, but we enjoyed interacting with them and being foiled by them. So,
absolutely.
Cool. All right, let's do another one.
Yep.
Avi also asked, we've provided some examples of why it's good to have reoccurring characters, but are there times when you should avoid using a previous NPC and introduce a totally new one?
I mean, I think if your stable of NPCs is small, you might want to add one in to just, expand it out. I think if you have to go to great stretches of story and plot to figure out why is it always this, how does this character have all of the smuggling jobs, the assassination job, the Blacklist is about one of those characters, right? There can't be that many Raymond Reddingtons in the universe. So yeah, I think that in terms of reoccurring characters, you don't want to have so many that it's diluted and that you never really get to play them enough times over.
Yeah.
But I don't think you want to have so few that all you have is 2 NPCs that you go to all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know a better way to say that other than there's definitely a feel. How many times do you want this character to reoccur? Right? Do you want them in every session? Then yeah, you got to kind of push them somewhere where they're going to be a little more central. Do you want them to just be around in a particular place that the players are going to cross frequently? That's different. Go make another NPC somewhere else.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I do really think it's a feel thing. And I think also, there's a temptation, when the players love an NPC, the GM then loves to play that NPC because, you get good feels from playing a character everybody likes. So your first inclination is I just got to keep playing this character. And, which is somewhat okay, but you might, have room to put some other characters that they'll also like.
Yep. Agreed.
I think the best time to bring in a new NPC is when it's obvious the players aren't having fun with the old one. Mm-hmm. That's a great indicator.
That's
it's
true.
time to bring in a new NPC when the players have gotten tired of the old one. Keep an eye on that, and you'll find that a little bit. So
cool.
All right. Any other questions?
I think we hit it. So
right.
Let's jump back into
good stuff.
The second half, where we return to our topic of reoccurring characters with the roundtable discussion, starting with question number 1, Phil.
What is your favorite reoccurring character in a game that you have run or played? And I'm just going to say, it doesn't have to be your favorite. It could be one of your favorites.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Ukla. This is not Ukla the Muck, though. The name came from that. Those of you who remember the 70s and 80s, if you ever got WPIX or lived in the New York City area, there was a person there named Crazy Eddie, whose prices were insane. And
not politically correct anymore, but yes, I also remember Crazy Eddie and his. It was this cheap electronics store.
Ads were horrible.
But yeah,
horrible.
His ads were horrible, but they were everywhere. And I needed an NPC one time, and I was using Steve Jackson's Cardboard Heroes, and there is a pink lizard man in there, and so I had a pink lizard man named Ukla, and who acted very similar to that TV character Eddie. And Ukla had a big hat, and he had a big tent, and he was always selling discount items. If your party needed a bucket, they could get a bucket there. They might find a +1 magic sword with a weird curse on it. They might find a wand. He always had a whole bin of wands he hadn't tested yet. that may or may not have charges, and he had no idea what they did. And it was a good place for the players to just kind of. It was, first of all, it was a good place for me as a GM to get things into the hands of characters, because I could have, okay, they really wanted to have this ability. I can give them a wand that's got 4 charges on it and can't be recharged. Here, play with this till it's done. And then he kept showing up again in that game whenever they went to a town. His caravan was always moving around. He always had a different hat on. I ran a different fantasy campaign, and I just mentioned him once. The players immediately went there to go see him, to the point where they liked him in multiple campaigns. The last year of college that I was running this, one of the players created a lizard man in a different campaign, and his character grew up working for Uncle Ukla, and so had a whole bunch of had all the villains that Ukla would have that didn't like him for stuff. He was a quest generator, basically just a character. I enjoyed playing him because he was completely chaotic good. So he was off the wall and always had some ulterior motive for everything he was doing. He was a good place for the players to sell whatever they had. Yep. They were never going to make a lot of money at it, but he could buy it. And they were bumping into people in his shop that would give them clues. And it was a good recurring character. I had fun playing him. The players in my college group seemed to really like him a lot. And it was also a really good way to give some credence to a character in multiple campaigns. But I never forced them into it. They never okay, you have to go to Ukla's shop. It was always, you see a bunch of things, and you see a tent with a picture of a lizard man wearing a Hawaiian t-shirt. That's all I would say. And if they went there, then they knew what they were getting into. If they avoided it, which they never did, luckily, I didn't have to bring him in there. So I never tried to force him on the players. He was just there if they wanted him. Yeah. But they enjoyed interaction. We had some campaigns where they spent 2 hours role-playing with the tent of Ukla and what they were finding, and sometimes it was the old school shopping spree problem, but oftentimes just who else was in Ukla's shop and what was he involved with and how come the dragon isn't nice to us, that kind of thing. That was Ukla.
Now I want to have a bin of indeterminate wands, and the proprietor of the shop picks one up and shakes it. Every time he shakes one, it sounds like a mostly empty paint can.
Yeah. We had a wand of color change. Anything you touch with the wand turns to another random color. They said no control over it, but it was good for disguising stuff, and it worked on anything, including skin. So Anyway, go ahead, Bob.
So one of my favorite reoccurring characters that we ever had was the nemesis to my hacker in Phil's Conspiracy X campaign, Data Spike. My character hated that guy with the fiery passion of 1,000 burning suns, but I loved having him around.
He had a he had, well, because they were both hackers, he could always send messages to you. Right. And there was always this cat and mouse game of he had seen you here or heard about this. We just missed each other. He had screwed you over a few times.
It was
and the thing was about Data Spike was that Data Spike was basically your character working for the bad guys. He really wasn't very different than your character, and under other circumstances.
It could have been me.
You could have just been friends.
Yeah.
If you had both been in Aegis, you would have been friends.
Yep.
But yeah, I know you hated him with a passion of fiery suns, and right up till you murdered him in the grocery store parking lot when you finally found him.
Kiss, I kissed the front of his head with a couple of bullets, but
yeah, you did. You had to go into hiding for a little while.
Yes, it did. Change my name. Yeah, it was.
Change your name. Got some plastic surgery. Yep. Yeah.
What about you, Phil?
One of my favorites was the music store owner, which was Bob's anchor character Silas. From Tales from the Loop. What's his name? Yeah, Silas. Yeah. He was great. I absolutely just loved playing this character. He was this 70s metal god who kind of got out of the life and would opened up a music store where he sold instruments to kids who went to school, also he had like some rock gear in the back. But what I loved about him was that, and this was true for all of the adults in our Tales from the Loop game, is that no matter what the kids tried to tell the adults always misunderstood it for something else.
Yep.
And so Silas had like all sorts of weird advice and stuff for Bob's character because Silas was like totally out there. I'm trying to remember, there was a really awkward conversation. Oh, I think it's when you were you had decided to take Leah to the dance, and you were like in 7th or 8th grade, your character, right? And Silas decides that this is the time to talk about the birds and the bees. And it's just this.
Like, no.
Like Bob's character's like, whoa, dude. And Silas
Just
is like, look, when a man loves a woman. He's like, do you need any condoms? He's like,
What?
It was like Silas was just really, Silas like always misunderstood what was going on.
Yep.
His transformation in Things from the Flood actually made Silas a much darker character. And I think he's the one who gives Bob his first hit of ecstasy. Like it was, but I liked Silas a lot because like at the end of a mystery, Bob would always show up to his, because you always show up to your anchor character to get your conditions cleared. And I always knew I was going to have a good time. Like when Bob showed up to see Silas, because Silas would totally misunderstand everything that was going on.
Yep.
Bob would tell him all sorts of stuff, and Silas would completely not get any of it.
Like, oh, like you're talking in metaphors. Yeah, I get it. Like, no, I was being realistic.
Like sometimes you're up on stage and you're doing this thing, man. And Bob's like, yeah, that's it, Silas.
Sure, Silas, that's exactly right.
But he would have like these nuggets of wisdom, but like they just come out of left field, like just completely bonkers.
Good times.
All right, what's our second question?
Our second question is, when is a recurring character a bit obnoxious or annoying?
Yes, we have some good ones on this list. I forget what the game actually called this one. I believe it was the argumentative orc or something along those lines in our Forbidden Lands game. It was a random encounter that happened twice, so therefore recurring character.
Absolutely.
And this orc would just be wandering through the woods and just pull out a soapbox, stand on it, and just rail on shit. And just pick a fight. Like he wanted someone to throw down with. And eventually I was like...
The description's hilarious, right? So the description is like, this orc goes around insulting people because he thinks that when you get angry and kind of lose your temper, you are the most true person.
That's what it was, the insulting orc.
So he's right. So he's just like, as you come upon him, he's just like making fun of you. He like peed at you, I think, at one point.
Yeah. It got to the point where it was like, okay, we're done with this guy. And then he shows up again like months later in another session and starts just railing on my friggin' character again. And I'm like, nope, I'm done. Whack.
and killed him like in one shot.
Oh yeah, and it was a brutal one too. I had like 12 dice whenever I friggin' rolled, and I had successes all over the place. I just cut him down.
He died happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he died happy. He was like, he's like, you did it. Like he was so proud of you. Like it's I did not make that character up. It was in the book, and it was just that like I read it and I was like, okay, we're doing this. like, all right. I don't know. I like, all right, we're doing this. I'm going to just make this character and start insulting them all.
Yep.
I did not see another way out for him. Yep. Honestly, I did not see I did not see how he was going to ever survive more than a few more encounters.
Yeah,
it's good.
All right, you've got a good one, Phil.
I disliked, and this is part Watsy's fault, and then I think somehow part also Bob's fault.
I'm sure I helped.
From the 4th edition adventure Pyramid of Shadows, the disembodied head Varellus, which the players are saddled with through the entire adventure. At some point, I got so annoyed, I just put Varellus's head in a sack and carried it around because I didn't want to talk to it anymore. It was obnoxious. I don't even remember exactly what made it so obnoxious, but after like 2 or 3 rooms in, and I was like, who's got a sack? Who's got a sack on her?
You put her in the bag, and she's still talking to the bag.
I know. She was like in a sack in my backpack, talking the whole time. And when we got to the end of the adventure, and we killed the main bad guy, it was Varellis' former lover, I like took her head and like rolled it down the stairs or something. I was like, well, we're no longer in need of your services, Varellis. Oh God, I hated that's all I remember about that adventure.
Yep.
I remember the other adventures super clear and like really enjoyed them, but Pyramid of Shadows I hated because of that stupid ass NPC.
It was honestly not a very well written adventure. And that head was just like the icing, the bitter icing on the bitter cake.
So, and I mean, to Bob's credit, there was nothing I liked about this character. I think if it was made to be annoying, you achieved it because, man, I hated that head. And the only reason I didn't get rid of it or kill it sooner was because I wasn't 100% sure we wouldn't need it for the final encounter. I was like, I just can't bank on that this thing isn't the key to beating this guy at the end. So Varellis, you're coming with us. But after we killed the guy, I was like, well, clearly we didn't need Varellis.
Yep, don't need you anymore.
Yeah, we don't need her now.
How about you, Jer?
Well, for me, it was in a campaign. There was actually, it was the same campaign with Jack Sparrow and Kree, actually. But this was the very beginning of the adventure before those characters came on. We were on a quest to save a town, and we needed some magical mushrooms that were in a cave. And not those kind of magical mushrooms. And the GM...
It's always those magical mushrooms.
To save the human town, and the GM introduced a female elf sorceress bionic named Garowin, who came in. And she was an elf princess, and she was beautiful, radiant metal. And he just assumed that the players were going to just like fall in love with her and everything. And about half the party did, because they were male players. She was a big-breasted elf who hung around in scanty outfits, and she had a big bodyguard. And the thing is, number one, she hated humans. I wasn't human, I was also elven. But she hated humans, so she didn't want to save the town. She had the mushrooms and wouldn't share any with us. And the GM kept having her mentally spy on our conversations. So we would talk about something over here, and then we'd go and she would react to that automatically. And then she disappeared for a while and came back a couple adventures later. We were still in those caves, and we caught her again. And she just kind of kept forcing herself into the party and would use our resources and all that, to the point where I drew down on her. And the GM had her go away, and she came back a third time. And the third time she came back, I informed the GM that I was going to kill her if she showed up again. And because she just kept... She literally would get into our minds, and like we'd be in a conversation, and she'd be like trying to change our personality, like, oh, make a save to see if you actually say that kind of thing. And we found out that she was like in there because she didn't consider anybody and she was supposed to be an ally of ours.
Boy.
The GM just thought, oh, cute, sexy elf thing, the player's going to go along with this, to the point where after that, I decided that my character's goal was to hunt her down and kill her at some point.
One day I will retire from adventuring, and then I will find her and murder her.
Oh no! We were going to kill her first, then retire from adventuring.
Oh, there you go. It's nice. It's nice to have goals.
No, that was my written goal for the character. And so, like 2 years later, when we were still in this campaign, we found out that she had died off screen because we were getting to the point where because I was the only player for the original campaign, that was now where I was steering the adventure, was hunting her down. So he had her die off screen. Then he had her sister show up, who was not obnoxious, and there was a whole there's a whole other story involving her sister but like to the point where, by far the most annoying recurring NPC ever, like she'd be in the game and I'm just like, we can't trust anything, we can't, and the GM just assumed that everyone's going to go along with cute, sexy elf girl because that's what he was thinking, and unfortunately that's what half our party was thinking was, oh, cute, sexy elf girl, we have to do whatever she says.
It's terrible.
Yeah, well, this was an online game, so it was not my normal group of players. It was when I was between game groups for a long time. But yeah, that was Garowin, and I never did. And I'm actually upset because I did not get a chance to kill her, because she was my arch enemy in the game at this point. But that was the game. That was her character. So So that was the most obnoxious recurring character we had.
All right.
So, go ahead.
All right, well, that would bring us to question number 3 then. Who is a character that you encountered as a GM or a player that you wish would have become a reoccurring character?
Yeah, I had to kind of scramble to think of one. But I have in Dangerous Space Jail, I have these two lovers, these two chaos lovers, Shia and Krolin. And I totally love them. And Matt's in here, right? I think Matt actually drew the artwork for Shia and Krolin. If I'm looking at these illustrations, I'm pretty sure these are Matt Morrow illustrations. I'll just check the credits. But yeah, it was Matt. But I totally loved them. And they were lovers, and they were not human looking. Like neither one of them was neither one of them had genders to begin with. Neither one of them were humanoid they were humanoid. Neither one of them were human in any respect, but they were basically like outlaw rebels against law. And they had like destroyed like a whole chunk of the universe before they were captured and put into Dangerous Space Jail. And they're the bad guys for the story. So you stop them, right? Like in the game, you kill them before they you either kill them or imprison them before they get out. So there's no like, what else about Shia and Krolin? Like they're just not there. Like they just, so I really dug them, and I would actually not mind doing something else with them, and like, you know, like having them be around before they went like into prison kind of thing.
Holy shit, they are badass looking.
Oh, are you looking at the illustration?
Yeah.
Shia is like a super armored, horned chaos 2-armed Naga, and Krolin is like some sort of insect chitin warforged with a crystal hand blade.
Yeah.
Good God, I love these guys. All right, anyway,
you could go back and do the life and eventual fall of Krolin and Shia.
Yeah, they were just like, I always pictured them like they were kind of like the Bonnie and Clyde of chaos. Like they just like, you know, they just like tore through the universe, destroying like beacons of law and like, you know, beacons of order until they're finally like rounded up and imprisoned.
Nice.
So that's a character I would like. Those are characters I'd like to see come back again. How about you, Jer?
All right, there was years ago we first started playing GURPS back in the 80s. We were a bunch of wandering ne'er-do-wells, and we ended up going to a city that the GM intended us to go into, have an adventure, and leave. And we ended up staying in that city for like 6 months of real time, and God knows how many weeks of game time. And in that process, one of the characters we encountered was a sorceress named Stardew. And the GM just kind of introduced her briefly, and we just loved her character. She was interesting, she was strong-willed, but she was friendly, a little quirky and chaotic. You could never quite tell what she was up to. We liked her a lot, and we were with her as a contact like 3 times in the same short adventure arc, and then the GM just never brought her back. I was still a bumbling teenager, so I was also like, oh, this could be an interesting romantic interest for my character, even though I had no idea what to do with it, and neither did the GM for that matter. But she was a very interesting character with, because of the questions we asked, I don't think the GM had anything planned for her except just, oh, she's an elven sorceress, she's going to help us. We kept asking questions of her because the players liked her character. And she had a detailed backstory, and she wasn't a victim, which was typical of female characters in those games. She had, I think he based her partially on Lita from ElfQuest, so she had a bit of a nurturing nature as well. It was a very interesting character, and we never saw her show up again. We played that GURPS game for a long, long time. We eventually left the city after accidentally setting it on fire, and then moved on to that's another story entirely.
Rumor is that Stardew moved off and like settled in a valley, started a farm, that kind of thing.
But
we left that city, and the next day, after an encounter involving some fire, the next day we got up to find that like 2/3 of the city was aflame, and unfortunately, while the city employed a wizard whose job it was to put out fires in the city. That was me, and I'd left the city, so it was bad. So maybe there's another reason why Star didn't show up. No, she never even showed up for the 6 months we were in the city, even though we looked for her. It just never happened. So, but we weren't smart enough to tell the GM that's what we wanted because we were all like 13, 14 at the time. So that was the character. But I liked the character, and it would be fun to bring her character back and other things. So Bob was a character you always wanted to have show up again.
So in Chris's Airy Peaks game, there was this guy that was, and I forget the number, it was like the 7th greatest swordsman.
The 7th.
In the world. And unfortunately, he had a disagreement with Core. And Core was like, nope, this guy's going down. And so they fought to the death. But I always thought that, that would be, that kind of personality would be fun to have pop up every once in a while, coming out of the peaks to hang out at the tavern where everybody hung out and spent their money before going back into the peaks to make more money so that they could come back and drink more and carouse, like that whole cycle of how the Airy Peaks worked. And I thought it'd be great to have this person, you run into him in the bar or on the party barge where the gambling was or whatever, like, like, oh, there's the 7th greatest swordsman over there talking about his exploits again, being all boisterous and bragging and all that. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be, and he was. I
don't know if you remember the whole story about that guy, but he was waiting for his true love.
Yes.
Who had got transformed into a spider.
Yes.
Into a spider woman, and she was way up above him in this this dungeon, like we had to climb up this thing.
And we had to kill her.
The disagreement was we were there to kill her because we needed something to save the world.
Yes.
And he was like, I can't allow that. And I'm like, you can try. He technically killed Corin. I made my Black Gates roll. No, you didn't have to kill her. Well,
we didn't know that at the time.
You say that now, Chris. I don't know. I didn't see that as an option. But I also, when after he was gone, when we fought her, I told her that he wasn't there at the bottom of the thing waiting for her, just so that I could enjoy her sorrow.
Yeah.
Because, I was, an acolyte of the priest of the god of Hoar, Frost, and Woe.
Yep.
Yes, Corin, bad person.
Corin was not bad, but Corin was not nice.
He was not good. He was not good. He was loyal.
Yep.
And had a hilarious misunderstanding of how halflings worked.
Yep.
But yes, I don't know if he was.
Wait! Now you have to explain that.
So in the Airy Peaks, Corin had only encountered a handful of halflings, and they were always warriors.
Okay.
So Corin just assumed that all halflings were great warriors.
Yep.
So we one day left the Airy Peaks, and we encountered a caravan of halfling merchants. And Corin, who is, like barbarian of barbarian, like strolls up to them and is like, brothers, we shall ride to the battle. We shall cover the field in the blood of our enemies. And he's like hugging each one of them. And they're literally like looking at him like, oh my God, who is this guy? Like, what does he want? And will he stop talking to us?
Okay,
it was.
You said doesn't understand how halflings work. I thought like you have to, like, you didn't realize you have to like feed them and clothe them. You don't just, No,
they were the fiercest warriors he ever saw. Like every halfling he ever encountered was like,
that's great.
Like they were all fierce warriors. And when the first time he encountered the actual Hobbit halflings, he was completely like, what is wrong with these people? Like, where is their thirst for blood?
You look a little round for a mighty warrior.
He'd have a good time at Eberron then.
It was very awkward. Yeah. The halflings were confused. I was confused. Yep. It was great. Like it was a very awkward.
That's good role playing. There.
It was delightfully awkward all around.
All right, Jerry, why don't you take us out?
Well, that was our take on reoccurring characters.
Yep. We hope that when you build new NPCs for your game, that you will find some of this advice helpful.
And we're going to check in with the chat room one more time before we head off to the conversation corner. And I don't know if there was, let me scroll back real quick just to see if there was anything else. Okay. No new questions. Although
I will state for the record that you can have good role-playing games in GURPS. Just that today it's a dated system. But then again, I think GURPS predates the person who asked the question by a couple of years. So
everybody has differing opinions on GURPS. It's what happens. These things happen.
These things do happen.
Let's do the thing where we roll on over to the conversation corner. Oh, man. You know what we didn't get a chance to do? We didn't have any discussions of possible new topics for me to pin later.
Oh,
because I was prepared for that.
You were prepared for it, and yet we didn't come up with anything. Yeah, oh, you know what? I don't know if it's going to be a full topic or not, but why don't you just throw it on the list? I can't remember. I think we were talking about this on pre-show. The idea of committing to a character versus being invested in a character.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's a whole episode yet, but like I got the beginnings of how sand gets nugget. Stuck in in an oyster to make a pearl.
Yep.
Like this is the bit of sand.
This is the grit of sand in.
Yeah.
I'll pin that.
Okay. Oh, I see. That's why you wanted it, so you could play with the sound effects from
I got a ding deck. Now. Woo!
Yay! We are easily amused here on the show.
You know what? Everybody's so happy about the ding.
I have no idea what that was.
That was
audience. Oh boy!
Sorry, they updated the software for the Stream Deck, and now there's a whole store where you can download royalty-free stuff. So I filled up a couple of slots on the thing. Okay, so conversation corner.
Yes,
this is where we do the thing where we talk about stuff.
Yep.
So Phil hit on this earlier. Packing is exhausting.
Yeah, it is.
And Phil got to the part where he actually moved some stuff. Like he had packed it and then he put it in the car, took it over to someplace else. Yes. I hadn't even gotten to that part yet. I'm just packing some stuff and I'm like, I filled up 5 boxes full of books and I'm like, I'm done. I need a nap.
21 days in, man. 21 days in.
So that's gonna be a joy when I have to put on the full court press to finish.
I'm telling you, movers, man. I mean, well, you got to pack it yourself.
Yeah, the packing is the hardest part.
I think the other part about packing that's somewhat exhausting is the sorting. Like, is this shit I need?
Oh,
yeah. Is this shit I want?
The purge is real.
Oh yeah.
I had a bunch of stuff that there's 2 categories of stuff: the quasi nostalgia stuff. And then the old tech that I put in a box because I might need it someday.
Yes.
I threw out, I still have some stuff that I have to take to the recycling event, but I have old, a 4-disc DVD changer for a computer. Nobody needs that anymore. I have 2 old removable hard drive bays where you lock it with the key or you unlock it.
Oh yeah, swappables.
Yeah. I just tons of tech, old cables, and although the one thing I did save, I have an assortment of old CPUs of varying, that go from the little bitty squares to eventually the big long ones. To I want to make myself like a shadow box.
Yeah, that's cool.
Of old CPUs. But the other thing, like I said, the quasi nostalgia thing, I had 2 old newspapers. We used to have a newspaper here in Buffalo called the Courier Express, which was the morning paper, and then the Buffalo Evening News was the evening paper. When the Courier Express decided that they had to close down and they printed their last paper, I grabbed a copy, everything, ads and everything, just grabbed it, stuck it in a plastic bag and put it off to the side. And I grabbed the first copy of the Sunrise edition of the Buffalo News and I put that as like maybe worth something someday or whatever weird thought went through my head at the time. And I pulled those out and looked at them and went, "Oh, interesting reading Hagar the Horrible from 1982." But nope, right into the recycling bin.
How is Kathy doing?
I didn't bother reading Kathy, but Kathy was in there.
I believe Kathy said "og," and then she got her hair all frizzy. I believe that's what happened.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So yeah, those went right into recycling. So, but so the packing stuff is just a thing.
The big one for me was when I sorted through all my RPG stuff, and I made 3 piles, and I was like, okay, there is a pile of stuff that I want out on a bookcase where I can see them, where I can find them if I want to play them, or just show them off, whatever. Then there's a pile of like, okay, I want these with me because I may want to look at them for research purposes, or I like someday when I get future bookcases, I would like to put these in future bookcases.
Yep.
And, like I would like these accessible. So I put those in clear plastic totes, like, so I could see them. And then I had a remarkable amount of books where I was like, like, I don't give a shit about these books. Like, I kept everything that I've had a good campaign from, right? Like, I was like, I played, Tales from the Loop. Clearly that's going up on a shelf as like, I don't know if I'll ever run it again, but it's my souvenir.
Yeah.
From my kick-ass campaign.
Yep.
But then I ran into so many books later that I was like, I don't even know. Like I bought all these books. We never played a game from it. Yep. Like I raided eBay and bought like all these Innomine books.
Yeah.
And then we really never played Innomine. So I was like, I don't need these anymore.
Yep. That's a tough game to play. I've played it. It's
Innomine wasn't tough to play angels. It was tough to play the demons.
Demons were worse. Angels would have been easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the demons were the fun ones.
Well,
yeah, but they're like also like they run out of like. There's only like so much bad you can be.
Yeah.
Well, that
before it gets boring.
Right, before we get completely off track on that.
There's a whole thing to talk about there. Yeah. But go ahead.
So I have been super impressed with Voyager season 5 and the season 6 episodes so far. There was, oh my God, it was the Doctor episode. And now I can't think of the.
Is that the Tinker Soldier Dr. Spy?
That probably was the one. Where
is the one where he's daydreaming?
The one where he was daydreaming and the potato people were watching him.
Yes.
I like to call them the potato people.
Yeah, I like them.
There was another episode that just punched me right in the feels right at the end. It was just like, man, it's so good. The writing on him was so good. So looking forward to more of that. And tonight should be just a ball.
I say this every time we talk about Voyager that I never gave it a fair shot, a fair shake in the 90s. And I'm so glad I went back and rewatched it all because I'm just like, show's great. Yep. I mean, like this show's fantastic. And I'm really excited because, they are currently doing the primary shooting for the Voyager documentary.
Yep. That should be good.
Like they did for the DS9 one. Yep. And the DS9 one is so good.
Yep. That turned out great.
Yeah.
So looking forward to watching Loki tomorrow. The Bad Batch, of course, is just hitting on all cylinders. And then
stepped itself up this week.
Yeah. And there was an interesting movie. Saturday night, Jerry came over and we picked the movie based on the single image and the description in Netflix. And when I looked at it and read the description, I thought it was like an older, not present day martial arts kind of story. And it turned out it was modern day Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh. So what it turned out to be was a Vietnam version of Taken, where this woman's daughter gets kidnapped, and then she goes on her little spree to try and get the daughter back, and ends up fighting a bunch of people. And it was actually pretty good. There were a couple parts where it felt a little slow, and there was just one weird thing at the end that just makes me scratch my head like I don't get it after everything that we saw for the hour 45, almost 2 hours or whatever it was. of this decent, action flick with a lot of good martial arts scenes, a kick-ass female lead, like all of that. And at the very, very end of the movie, she looks directly into the camera and says something. I forget what she said, but it's just like jarring. Yeah. She looks directly into the camera and she says something, and it's like, what the fuck was that? Like, it was just
and broke the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Sort of. It was very strange.
It was weird, but otherwise, decent movie. It's called Fury, Furie, and it's on Netflix right now. Some really good action in that movie. But yeah, it's going to be the next month and a half, hopefully less than 2 months, depending on how things go with the inspection tomorrow. Are going to be interesting, trying to maintain working on work stuff during the day. And I kind of got called out by my boss today for saying I needed to cut out early tomorrow for the inspection. She's like, we have, people expecting a certain amount of progress on this thing, and you keep asking, telling me that you're going to be taking some time to do this and that. And it's like, I'm making up all that time. Like, every time I say I've got to do a thing or I have to leave early or whatever, like, I've been clocking in early. I've been making sure that I cover extended amounts of time to make up for any time that I'm missing. But she kind of was like, and I'm like, look, I can't always get all of my appointments to go outside of normal business hours. It's not how things work.
Yeah.
So, but So Jerry, what about you?
Well, like I said, hiring and interviewing has been interesting. I'm glad we found somebody that looks like they're going to work out for our office. It'll be very useful. I like having new employees on. They had new life and kind of interest to the job. And like I said, traveling a lot, even though we didn't have anybody show. People that signed up for the interviews just never showed up for them. This is for a salaried job, so we'll see what happens with it. That was a little frustrating, but we move on. But it's going to mean that for the next couple of weeks, there are going to be days that I'm going to be suddenly at the last minute out of town for a little while. I can schedule around Tuesdays, but other days might be the odd day here and there as I either cover territory or have to do that. So it means that my schedule for the next month or so is going to be a little bit chaotic. Aside from that, though, season 5 Rick and Morty dropped this week, and they had a very strong start. That just once again kind of raising the stakes and setting some fun stuff with the show. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. Just say that it's if you like Rick and Morty, this is another really good one. With some fairly interesting repercussions after episode 1 for several characters in the show. Loki has been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying it so far. I'm waiting for that episode 4 where all of a sudden stuff kicks in, but even this last episode added some interesting twists to it. I'm enjoying the show a lot. The aesthetic is very unusual, and I like that the Time Variance Authority, their kind of 50s, 60s era technology is just amazing. Bad Batch, again, a great episode this past week. Brought back another character from another series, and also stepped up the stakes in a big, big way.
Yep.
That made things very happy. Voyager is just completely enjoyable. I had a great time watching Voyager this week. Looking forward to tonight's show. I'll jump one and say that movie night at the Casa de Bob was a good success. It's the second time we've done this, and I thought Fury was a lot of fun. I agree that I didn't find the end scene as jarring, but it was definitely out of place. But I liked the movie. I agree with Bob. There's just one stretch in the middle where all of a sudden it just slows down, and there seems to be a little bit of unnecessary plot padding that didn't need to be there. And it wasn't that it was bad, it was just noticeable because the rest of the movie was so well paced. It wasn't bad, it was just all of a sudden the pacing of the movie changed for a short time. And it wasn't even a beat structure change, it was just a pacing change, and it was noticeable.
Yep.
And aside from that, I would say it's a lot of fun if you don't mind subtitle movies. I liked a lot of it just to see the modern day culture of Vietnam. You see the difference between the city of Saigon and the small village that she lived in, and the way people live their day-to-day lives, and the social structure of the debt collectors and the mercenaries and everything. Just there was a lot of It was a fun movie to watch. It was a fun movie to enjoy. And as a GM, there was a lot of like, oh, I'm going to use that stuff in there. And lastly, this week, we got on with Chris and played Valheim and went up against boss number 4 out of 5 so far. And did surprisingly well with it. And then geared ourselves up to go into, the last couple of biomes. And so Bob and I have been doing a lot of fun exploring when we can get on at night. And, it's been tense again, which is a lot of fun in this game. Every time you go into a new biome, you're in another level of danger that we're actually better capable to deal with, but it's been a lot of fun. So it makes the game more entertaining. And, I'll have to tell you, Bob, I've done some more exploring since last time you were on. But it's just been fun. It's been a nice little thing. So that was my week. Phil?
I mean, I've been pretty busy, like I talked about at the top of the show. I did take some time and go get a new phone. So I got rid of my old busted Samsung and got myself a iPhone SE, which my work iPhone is an iPhone XS Max. So the SE is positively tiny compared to the XS Max. But I absolutely love, you can, if you're Tony, you'll make fun of it to no end. But there's a really nice thing about being in the Apple ecosystem for things like when it was time to set up my new phone, I did the thing you do with every Apple device, which is you just show it one of your other Apple devices and then it goes and gets all of your settings for you. So like it's like as soon as I logged into it, it was like, oh, by the way, is your other iPhone nearby? And I was like, yes. And it's like, can you just show it the image on the screen? Like I hold one up to the other and it's like, cool. Just can you put them down for a few minutes so we can get all your settings for you? Wi-Fi passwords, all of that stuff. All right. Fantastic. I thought that's normally pretty cool. But then I found out like another level of that today. So I went over to the apartment and I was like, all right, I got to take a conference call at the apartment. So I brought over my work laptop because I was waiting for a mattress to be delivered. So I take my work laptop with me. And about 10 minutes before the conference call starts, I'm like, oh, you know what? I better jump on the Wi-Fi, log in and stuff like that. So I click the Wi-Fi. I find, my Wi-Fi name, Quarks Bar. And my machine, my laptop automatically logs onto the network. And I'm like, no password. I'm like expecting to put the password in. I quick open a browser, throw it open, and goes out to like Google, I think open Facebook or something, jumps right in. And then I realize, oh shit, it picked up the password off of one of my phones.
Yep.
Like my phones have been configured for that network for a while. And because my phones, my watch, my iPad, and all my Macs are all on the same Apple ID account, it was just like, it like found the network and was like, oh no, bro, I already got the password from the other guy.
We got you.
Like, we got you. You're in. And I was like, oh shit, man. Like that's some fancy high tech shit right there. Like I'm sure Tony would be like terrified that like all my devices are, talking to each other like that, but it's great. Like, I love it. So I did that. And of course, all the fun for messing with the new phone, right? So like I did all the, the fun new, like, reconfiguring apps and like squaring away the home screen and shit like that. I've been watching, obviously, Voyager. I haven't had a lot of free time lately, though. So I've been doing the Voyager thing. Still watching Blacklist when I'm making breakfast and stuff. It's getting a little samey, right? Like, there's only so many people that can attack Raymond Reddington. And it seems to be nonstop. But James Spader's fantastic, so I'll just continue to watch it because watching James Spader's a lot of fun. And I did play some mini golf this weekend. The kids, we all went to play mini golf as a pre-Father's Day event, and it was quite fun. It was quite fun. I hadn't played mini golf in a little while. And it was nice to just, it was an outside activity, so we didn't have to wear masks or anything. And, there weren't, people really bunched up with us. There were, people behind us and stuff like that. But yeah, I like mini golf. I like mini golf a lot. Adventure Landing is okay, mini golf. There's some other cooler places to play. out in Depew and stuff like that. But it was cool. It was fun, and I got it on a Groupon, so like I got a 4-pack with tokens and stuff. It was like pretty ridiculously cheap. So yeah. So anyway, that's me.
All right. That will roll us on out the door here to the Patreon shoutouts, and then we can get into the after show. So thank you for being our patrons to Chris Mead, Craig Duffy, Dan Simons, David Walker, Drew Smith, the secret weapon of the show, Glenn Seiler, one of our table mates, great player, great GM, Jason Pinella, Jason Pitt, Gene Lorbert, and Jeff Stevens. And thank you all for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as They're a Super Geek, Mastering Dungeons, Bonestone Obsidian, The FM Gamers, Panis Talking Games, The Gnomecast, John Who Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have introduced your awesome new character, and before you reintroduce them, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via the old-fashioned emails, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on the Twitters. The show and the network is at misdirectedmark. He is Robert M. Everson. He is GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panis Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Zhangu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhangu Hustle, and Bonus Experiences at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panis Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production, show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
Be out.